Hello and welcome to another First Descendant video. Today we'll be doing a deep dive into number 6 in the Golan Special Forces, or as most people know her as, Freyna. With her ability to utilize toxics with the help of her arcane abilities, Freyna excels at wave-based clearing and also has a way of surviving large amounts of damage by creating a toxic screen around her. So let's take a look into her abilities, starting with her passive. Her passive, Contagion Links, when an enemy inflicted with room 0 trauma is killed, it spawns a toxic puddle, and this can cascade to other enemies nearby. This passive can be affected by Transcendent Mods. Her first ability, Venom Trauma, fires a toxic bullet dealing damage to hit enemies, and when the bullet explodes, create a toxic puddle that inflicts room 0 trauma. Her second ability, Defense Mechanism, coats Freyna in a veil of toxic gas, protecting her from incoming damage. If an enemy attacks her while in this state, room 0 trauma is applied to them. Her third ability, Putrid Venom, creates a toxic swamp. Any enemies leaving the area will leave behind toxic footprints, which applies room 0 trauma if enemies cross those footprints. Her fourth ability, Venom Baptism, summons a toxic LMG and will disappear when all bullets are used or if the duration of the ability is over. Each bullet causes room 0 trauma, and the amount of shots and fire rate of the weapon is affected by the currently equipped weapon at the time of the summoning weapon. At the time of this recording, there's 6 Transcendent Mods that Freyna can equip, and we'll start with the first one, which is Toxic Mixture, which modifies the room 0 trauma effect into Necrosis, and Fireman attack increases with the number of Necrosis stacks, signifying by the counter underneath the enemy's HP bar. Bear in mind that this is an Ultimate Freyna exclusive mod and won't work on the base Freyna model. Next is Venom Injection. When using a skill, continuously consumes resources to grant self-toxic sense. When toxic sense is active, hitting an enemy with a firearm or a skill inflicts corrosion. This in turn reduces the enemy's toxic resistance to Freyna. They also regenerate shields, and this is an Ultimate Freyna exclusive mod. Next, we have Neurotoxin Synthesis, modifies the effects of room 0 trauma, does not spread poison, but inflicts attack reduction and weakness regeneration. This works for both ultimate as well as base Freyna. Next, we have Venom Synthesis, which changes the third ability, Putrid Venom, into something a little bit different. This is a movement-based ability now, and it leaves toxic footprints that inflicts room 0 trauma on enemies that come in contact with it. This can be used on both ultimate as well as base Freyna. Next is Toxic Stimulation, which changes your second ability, Defense Mechanism, to be able to be shared to your friends so you can grant them Plague Armor. This can be used on both ultimate as well as base Freyna. Lastly, we have Contagion. When an enemy inflicted with the room 0 trauma is killed, a contagion of room 0 trauma surrounds it in a form of a cloud instead of a pool on the ground. This can be used in both ultimate as well as base Freyna form. Now that you got a general idea of how Freyna's kit works, let's talk about the builds. And before we dive in, I just want to preface that feel free to use and modify any of the builds I have in this video to your liking, because sometimes my playstyle doesn't fit yours, so don't feel bad. Definitely modify it to how you want it. We're going to be first looking at a gun focus build. So our reactor is going to be a Toxic Mechanics reactor, because our first and third ability, which we'll be using between our shots, will be tech based. So we just want Tilic, skill power up and skill duration up, very helpful. And then whatever your optimized condition for whatever weapon you're going to be primarily using. External components is going to be the Annihilation shot, just mainly because then when we get our HP low, which we're going to be guaranteed getting our HP low, just in general when we're fighting, our fireman attack just increases. It's a very just solid, good weapon focus build. As for the weapons themselves, that is a personal preference. I've been enjoying the Albion Cavalry and the newest weapon, Malevolent, but if you don't like those, just go with whatever you want and just have fun, go ham. As for fellows, I would highly suggest the Vesper's Hunting Dog, just mainly for the automatic refill of rounds here, because we're using weapons as our main damage, so he will be a good companion for that. Or if you want to do healing, go with the Sheepdog. Now for our arcade tuning, we're going to be going for a gun focus build. So we're going to be just focusing on enhanced firearm attack. So look for the symbol in the upper left corner, just follow the route and just try to attack as much damage as possible, and you should be able to cover every node with once you hit level 40. Now let's take a look at the mods right here. We're going to be using the Toxic Mixture Transcendent mod, just mainly because fire will increase with the number of necrosis stacks. Since we're going to be weaving our first and third abilities onto enemies, we'll get the extra damage up. Whatever kind of maneuvering or grapple you want. I've been finding mid-air maneuvering is very easy and pretty easy to traverse through things fairly quickly. Sharp focus, just mainly for our firearm attack. We don't really care about our skill power modifier. We're just going to be focusing on weapons, and then walk the tightrope, so when our HP is lower, our firearm attack is increased, and that is very good with the Annihilation set, which we covered a little bit earlier. Now, for since we're going to be using our abilities a little bit to weave in our damage, we want to have a little bit of cooldown with MP conversion, nimble fingers, and then a little bit of defense here for survivability with the skill power, and then a little bit of HP and duration for our ones. And then we're just going to have a little bit of range with our max shields, and then a little bit of damage with our toxic amplification. Don't really care about the crit damage, but this will be a good overall like skill with mixed in with weapon damage. Alright, for this next one, we're going to be doing a shield focus build, and believe it or not, your Freyna, once you get this build, can be very tanky. Let me show you a little demonstration on how this is.
I'll load. How was that? Load.
Loaded. Reloaded. My shield.
Need to recharge my shield.
My shield has been damaged.
So yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous. You can survive pretty much anything the game throws at you at this current time. So let's go take a look into it. For our reactor, the main stat we want is skill cost, which we'll explain in a little bit. So make sure your skill cost, the secondary stat, is not really that important, and then just your optimized condition as best you can. External components is the distorted resolve set from Deathstalker, mainly just because we want the skill power up, and it also gives you shield regeneration, so that's very helpful in this one. Our fellow is going to be the Hagio Sheepdog, because even though we are going to have 1 HP and more shields, it still will be able to heal us. And again, we'll go into more details on why we only have 1 HP for that. Arcade tuning, we're just going to be focusing the bottom section, mainly focus on HP, and then just hit any shield focus nodes as much as possible. And once everything is said and done with mods, we're at hitting about 38.8 thousand shields, which is a bit ridiculous. Weapons wise, I've been finding that Fallen Hope is pretty solid, mainly because of its intrinsic perk here. That hitting a poisoned enemy, so when you use your first or third ability, they get poisoned. When you hit them with this, your firearm attack is increased, which is very nice. So yeah, Fallen Hope just goes well with Freyna in general. Malevolent, again, is a toxic based weapon, and then whatever launcher, but pretty much any weapon will work with this. It's just you're going to be a tank, so be reliant on your weapons for damage. Now, this is the build. We're going to be using the Venom Injection one, mainly because it gives us some max shield regeneration per second, so we're just going to keep our shields going, and then whatever grapple hook you want. Big help is a biosynth shield, which converts 70% of the HP orbs on the ground into shield orbs, which is nice. So that is a way of making sure you're sustaining. Now, one thing about Venom injection is that it's going to be constantly draining your MP gauge. So the way that we want to mitigate that as much as possible is to bring your skill costs down. So the way to do that, maximize conservation for skill cost, weight the scale, strong mentality, and there we go. Everything else is going to be just more on focus on HP and shields, because we're going to be using the overwhelming shield mod, which changes our max HP to 1, but also increases our max shields based on the max HP. So if we have increased HP, stamina, stim accelerant for max HP is going to feed into more shields, increased shields, amplification, range, shields again, time distribution, skill cooldown, max HP, which gives us more shields. So that is basically the build for that, and have fun tanking whatever the game throws at you. Alright, moving on to the next build. This is going to be a mobbing focus, so 400s, just large ad density, you'll just be able to clear things a lot. Defense missions, been very helpful in that regard. So for reactors, we're going to go skill duration up and tech skill power. Again, substats, it's up to you on how to want. I'm finding that this works for me. Optimized condition, tactical rifle, like you'll understand why in a little bit. I definitely recommend having that in your slot as a condition. External components, we're going to do the Slayer set. Even though skill cost is going to be a little bit higher, we're going to be focusing on raw skill power as much as possible. So Slayer set fits the bill right there, so highly suggest doing that. For arcade tuning, we're going to be more focused on the right side and a little bit into cooldown. For this, the route I find is going to be good. We don't really care about crit or crit rate because we're just doing flat damage. So that's why I didn't go this high, and then I had 2 points left. So I went a little bit more into survivability with these HPs things. Now for weapons, I highly suggest Secret Garden is not required, but if you look at our intrinsic perk here, for the weapon, when using a tech skill, grants the unique ability Pest Control, which gives us firearm attack but also skill power by 5%. 5% does not sound a lot on paper, but when you see the numbers change when you have this equipped versus another weapon, it's pretty big. So I highly suggest doing it, but you're not required. But if you want to just get as much raw power as possible, definitely have the Secret Garden on hand, and that's why we have the tactical rifle class mounting, so we can just feed into the extra power that we can. Now for fellows, is up to you. I find that the sheepdog would be the best option. Don't really care for having ammo a lot, since we're just going to be using our skills, but yeah, this guy will just be able to top us off in case we get hit too many times. Let's take a look at the mods right now. We're going to be using the Contagion Transcendent mod, just mainly because it has better like area effect. What I've been finding is pretty solid Transcendent mod. And then whatever grapple, I've been finding mid-air maneuvering is really fun. Now for damage, we don't really have a lot of cooldown on this at all. So we're just going to go raw damage. And so we're going to be using Toxic Specialist, Tech Specialist, just raw damage, Venom, Synthum right here. We have a little bit of survivability for max HP, but you are going to be a little bit squishy, just a heads up. Skill expansion, just so those contagion clouds are just a little bit longer. Iron defense, a little bit of defense right there with skill power, and then more damage mods right up here. Decimator, really cool when defeating an enemy inflicted with debuffs, which you're constantly doing with your toxic. Skill power modifier, defeated enemies up to 10 seconds. So you're gaining a huge amount of damage modifiers when you're debuffing. So if you're running a defense, you just get this decimator constantly up and you're just shredding through things. Frugal Mind, skill cost doesn't hurt to have it, and then just actually a skill range. And so yeah, that's a pretty simple build, but you can deal damage up to 250,000 per tick, which is a little bit crazy and a little bit higher with the arcade tuning now. Alright, for our last build, we're going to be focusing on popping our fourth ability as much as possible. And so we're going to be using our reactor. Yes, I'm not using a different type of reactor, mainly because I'm going for the stats skill cooldown, just so I can be able to pop my fourth ability as faster. For those who do not know, you don't have to have the element type reactor. You can just have a reactor on the character so you can have those stats. So it's not required, but it's helpful because you might be losing out on skill power. As you can see there, I'm at 100 instead of 160, but this is the best one I have so far. External components, I'm just going to be using the Slayer set. Nothing's changed here, mainly for skill power and all that fun stuff. Secret Garden I would highly recommend having, and just for the tech power boost is really helpful and all that. And then Fellows, heal Sheepdog or the ammo, up to you, but I think Sheepdog would work better with this build. Now onto our final build here. We have Contagion, just because every time when one of our bullets hit an enemy, we can just have a more spread ability right there, mid-air maneuvering. We're going to be focusing a lot of cooldown this time around, so focus on tech, focus on toxic, nimble, and MP conversion for our cooldowns. We have a little bit of survivability with battle stamina and then iron defense right there, and then we have a little bit of damage ones. We're not worrying about crit here still, so we're going to go toxic amp and tech amp right there. Now for our arcade tech, I'm messed around and I'm finding that skill attack upon enemy consumed shields to deal additional damage on top of the damage dealt. Last stand is pretty nice, so you can change that out or fully change this up to how you want it. But in the end, we are currently at 14.2 seconds cooldown, so yeah, it's a fairly quick one. And you can just pop your fourth fairly quickly while you're weaving 1 and 3 in and doing your damage. So yeah, that is the build. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.